Mr Acting Deputy President, unlike some, I'd like to talk about the good things that come out of our state. And on Monday I spoke about our strong medical research capability and the history we have of achievement in that field from our state. While others will talk about doom and gloom and try and create a perception that things are not good in Tasmania at all, I think it's important to try and set the record straight and to go with the Tasmanian community to look forward with optimism rather than just at the challenges we face. And so today I'm going to be talking about one of the bright spots in the Tasmanian economy, and that's the tourism sector, which I'm sure we're all big supporters of in this place. And I made mention of this sector in my first speech for good reason. And I believe the importance of that industry to our economy can't be underestimated. And as I say, I don't think any senator from my home state could possibly disagree with me when I say that it is one of the key industries in our state when it comes to employment, because it is one of our competitive strengths. And while Tasmania is a smaller jurisdiction by comparison with the larger mainland states, our performance at the annual Australian Tourism Awards is a good indicator of just how right we do it down there. We won more gold medals than any other state in the Commonwealth, and I have to add that this is for the third year running, and this is from the small state of Tasmania. And in the words of the Premier Will Hodgman, who is a good friend, as Senator McKim alluded to before, but an even better tourism minister, Tasmania does tourism better than anyone else in the country, and I have to agree with that. And he's also right to point out that the strength of the Tasmanian performance, not just at the awards but as an industry in general, comes from the strong relationship between government and the industry. And I do have to give a hearty commendation to the leaders of the tourism industry in Tasmania, people who've worked hard, who've had a vision and worked extremely hard with government and other industry operators to bring about the realisation of our competitive strengths. And there are too many to name, of course, but I'd like to make particular mention of just a few that have worked exceptionally hard over the years to see the growth that we've had in this industry. And I start with Luke Martin, who is the head of the Tourism Industry Council in Tasmania, which is led by the chair of its board, Daniel Leesong, and before him the Venerable Simon Currant, which would be familiar to many Tasmanians, I'm sure. Venerable Simon Currant, that's right. But the board, the chair, the CEO, they've all worked tirelessly to realise the tourism potential of our state, and I think they've done great things. There's also the private investors who've seen the opportunity to invest in our state and make the most of what we have to offer. People like David Walsh, who created Mona, the incredible Mona, and the associated festivals and exhibitions, which has transformed, and I don't think anyone can argue with this, that it's transformed the face of tourism in our state, quite frankly. There's Rob Pennicott with his wilderness adventures, and Brett Tarossi with her stunning boutique accommodation properties across Tasmania. The work of these people in the industry and with government has resulted in the strong performance I've already mentioned. And nationally, as was highlighted by our Federal Tourism Minister Steve Ciobo, there's been significant growth across the country, and I'm pleased Tasmania is part of that. But nationally, spending by international visitors has reached the unprecedented height of $39.1 billion last year. And we've seen incredible growth in international visitor numbers from right across Asia and the US. The investment by government in assisting the growth in the tourism sector is vital, and so the Turnbull government's investment, it's an investment that's been made by many successive governments, I must point out, of the $639 million to promote this country as a destination, alongside being able to negotiate some of the world's best aviation access agreements. And the introduction of visitor visa access improvements are all aiding this fantastic growth. But again, specifically turning to the state of Tasmania and the rate of growth in this piece of paradise. For the first time ever, Tasmania's passed the 1.2 million visitors per annum mark, and I believe that is an incredible achievement. In opposition, and Senator McKim would recall this as well, the now Premier, then Shadow Tourism Minister, named a target for visitors reaching the state of Tasmania, hoping we'd be at 1.5 million visitors per annum by 2020. And this target was set on advice from industry. when the target was set, of course, it's important to point out, industry said that when we reached that target, we would create an extra 8,000 jobs, particularly in regional Tasmania where jobs are so badly needed. It's clear, though, the government is well on its way to achieving this target, given that it's only requiring a 5% growth in annual visitor numbers to reach it. And we are, in the last year, had a 7% growth in visitor numbers to the state. So we are on the way. And further, we've seen an increase in spending to 10%, increase in spending of 10%, bringing it to a total of $2.14 billion per annum. So Tasmania, on these numbers and by any objective measure, is punching well above its weight, and I believe this is a great thing for our state. And back to the importance of the tourism industry to the regions of Tasmania, I've previously made mention in previous speeches to the fact that Tourism Research Australia has reported that the east and west coasts of Tasmania, made up of several smaller regional communities, are the 5th and 6th most tourism-dependent regions in the country. This demonstrates just how important good policy and hard work in this area is to growing the economy and creating jobs. We saw an 11% increase in visitation to the north of the state, a 10% increase to our spectacular east coast, and a 7% increase to the equally beautiful Cradle Coast region in the north and the west. Credit also has to be given to the steps the Tasmanian government has taken with regard to the ferry service across Bass Strait run by the TT line, the government instructing the company to alter its focus from commercial returns to government to maximising the number of visitors utilising the service. And this change of focus has seen an increase of visitors, sea visitors of 11%. Those visitors arriving in the north of the state, where we're seeing more people stay and take in what the north has to offer. As was the case with the national statistics with international visitors, the same applies at home in Tasmania. The international visitors have all grown by 11%, the US being the largest market. It's on this point that the growth we're seeing from international markets, the investment made by the Australian government of $38 million in the Hobart International Airport runway extension will be vital to seeing that continued growth for international visitor numbers. In the very near future, we'll be seeing, I believe, direct air freight flights from Hobart direct into Asia, meaning that fresh produce, the seafood, the berries and cherries, the meat products and the rest that the world is willing to pay such a premium for will make it more easily to market, and this is a real boon for our local producers. Similarly, once the runway extension is completed, and I'm certain and I have it on good authority that we will start to see direct charter flights to and from Asian destinations into Hobart. And hopefully one day we will see scheduled flights of the same nature. Though to continue to be viewed as the must-see destination, the Tasmanian government realises the state needs to continue to work with industry to foster creation of new product offerings, new experiences, new things for people to see and to do, new reasons for them to come or hopefully return for a second, third or fourth trip. And so I await with excitement the outcome of the work being undertaken on the Cradle Mountain Master Plan. This is one of those developments, I believe, in a truly spectacular part of the world that needs investment. And so I look forward to working with the Tasmanian tourism industry and the Cradle Coast Authority to see that we do get the required funds made available to bring the Cradle vision to life. Of great excitement too are the moves by the state government to remove uncertainty around the processes to enable developers who wish to lodge development applications to build a cable car up Mount Wellington. It's an exciting development in our capital city, and for those who know the mountain, I'm certain they'd see the merit in such a project. It's worked well in other countries, and even indeed one only has to look at the Kuranda Sky Rail in Cairns to see what a new product can do for visitor demand, Mr Acting Deputy President. Additionally, the amazing and revolutionary policy adopted by the Tasmanian government in allowing sensitive, sustainable and appropriate tourism developments in our national parks and reserves is to be commended. We have some of the most spectacular reserves in the world, and it's time to open them up, not just for the uber fit, but for everyone to see them. So I end on this note. We have the best environment, the best forests, the best beaches, the best rivers, the best restaurants and chefs, the best food, the best drink, whiskey, wine and beer. We know how to market ourselves. Tasmania is doing well. Come on down and see what the hype's all about. Thank you, Senator Donny. Your time is up.